InnerWhisper channel.
When the self disappears. We spend so much of our lives trying to define who we are. We tell ourselves stories about our past, our successes, our failures, and our dreams for the future. We say, "This is me. This is who I am," but have you ever stopped to ask, who is this me you keep talking about? Where does it begin? And where does it end? When we look deeply, we start to see something strange. This self we're so attached to isn't as solid as we think. It shifts, it changes, it reacts, it clings. One moment we're confident, the next we're insecure. One day we feel loved, the next we feel lost. The self we try so hard to protect is like a wave on the surface of the ocean, beautiful, but never separate from the water beneath it. The Buddha taught that suffering comes from clinging to this illusion, the illusion of a permanent, unchanging self. We build walls around our identity and then feel pain every time life doesn't fit within those walls. We say, "I want, I need, I deserve," and when life says no, we suffer. But what if the root of all that pain isn't the situation itself? What if it's the idea of I that resists what is? Think about it. When you get angry, it's because the self feels attacked. When you're jealous, it's because the self feels threatened. When you're proud, it's because the self feels inflated. The same self that gives you a sense of control is also the one that traps you in endless dissatisfaction. It's like holding on to a flame. The tighter you grip it, the more it burns. Let's imagine for a moment that you could let go of that grip, not losing yourself, but relaxing your hold on the idea that you are something fixed, something separate. What would happen? You might notice a strange and beautiful peace. Suddenly, the world doesn't revolve around you anymore, and that's not depressing. It's liberating. Without the heavy burden of always defending me, you can finally breathe. You can listen without needing to be right. You can love without demanding anything in return. You can experience joy that isn't owned or claimed, it just flows through you. That's the essence of no self or anatta, not the denial of existence, but the realization that there's no permanent I behind all your experiences. You exist, but not as a solid, unchanging thing. You are a process, a beautiful dance of body, mind, and conditions constantly moving and changing. When you see life this way, suffering begins to dissolve. You stop fighting what is. You stop asking the world to validate your existence. You start to see that your pain, your thoughts, your emotions are like clouds passing through the sky. None of them define you. They appear, they fade, and the sky remains untouched. The concept of no self isn't something you have to believe. It's something you can feel. For example, close your eyes right now and ask yourself, where is myself? You can find sensation, thoughts, memories, but none of them stay. None of them are truly you. You can think, this is my body, but the body changes every day. Cells die, new ones are born. The body you had 5 years ago doesn't exist anymore. You can think, These are my thoughts, but where do thoughts come from? They arise from nowhere and vanish into nothing. You can think, this is my personality, but even that shifts with age, environment, and experience. If everything about you changes, what part remains constant? The Buddha's answer was simple: nothing permanent, and therefore, nothing to cling to. And in that realization lies freedom. We spend so much energy defending our story, who we think we are, what others think of us, what we've achieved, what we fear. But every story eventually ends. When you realize that your story isn't the full truth of who you are, you become lighter. You stop trying to control every page, and instead, you learn to enjoy reading the unfolding. The self, in many ways, is like a mirror. When it's covered in dust, the dust of desire, fear, and attachment, you can't see clearly. But when you wipe it clean through awareness and acceptance, the reflection becomes pure. You start to see not just yourself, but everything as one continuous movement of life. No self doesn't mean nothing matters. In fact, when you're no longer obsessed with defending your ego, everything begins to matter more. You become deeply connected to others because you see yourself in them. Their joy becomes your joy. Their pain touches your heart naturally. Compassion grows effortlessly because the walls between me and you begin to dissolve. When the idea of I softens, forgiveness becomes natural. Gratitude arises more easily. Life stops being a competition and becomes a collaboration. You no longer live just to win or to prove something. You live to experience, to connect, to contribute. There's a quiet strength in humility. When you're not constantly shouting, "Look at me," your presence itself becomes peaceful. You don't have to prove your worth. You are worthy, simply because you exist in this web of life, interdependent with everything around you. When you deeply understand no self, even fear begins to lose its power. The fear of failure, the fear of loss, even the fear of death, all of them are rooted in the belief that there's a permanent me that can be lost. But when you see that what you call you is just a wave in the vast ocean of being, death is no longer an end, it's a return. And that realization brings the deepest peace of all. Because the truth is, you were never separate. You were never alone. You are life itself, expressing and experiencing through this temporary form. Every day, we move through life as if we are the center of everything. We say, "This is my plan, this is my problem, this is my success." But if you look closely, life has its own rhythm. Things rise and fall. People come and go. Nothing truly belongs to us, not our possessions, not our relationships, not even our thoughts. The deeper you understand this, the lighter your heart becomes. Imagine sitting quietly by a river. The water flows endlessly, carrying leaves, reflections, and ripples. You can dip your hand in it, but you can't hold the water. The moment you try to grasp it, it slips through your fingers. That's how life works. Every moment is flowing, moving, changing. When we stop trying to possess what is unpossessable, we begin to live in harmony with the flow. When you start to live with this awareness, you begin to see how much of your suffering comes from resistance. You resist when someone doesn't meet your expectations. You resist when plans change. You resist when you feel misunderstood. But resistance is just another form of clinging to me, the mind says. This shouldn't happen to me, and instantly pain is born. Now imagine if, instead of resisting, you could allow life to move as it wishes, not because you've given up, but because you understand that you were never truly in control. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. The river doesn't fight the current. It is the current. You, too, are part of that same movement. Letting go of the self doesn't mean you disappear or stop caring. It means you stop living in constant defense. You still act. You still love. You still dream, but without the heavy burden of always asking, "What does this say about me?" You begin to live more naturally, more peacefully. This is why people who touch even a small glimpse of no-self often describe it as freedom. They say, "It feels like I'm no longer carrying a weight I didn't even know I had suddenly." They can forgive. They can laugh. They can breathe. Their happiness is no longer dependent on how others see them, because they no longer see themselves as something separate to protect. Think of how much energy you spend defending your identity, your opinions, your image, your beliefs. It's exhausting, isn't it? When you're constantly protecting yourself, you can't rest. But when you realize that this self is just a temporary pattern, a story unfolding in time, you can finally relax into the vastness of being. You can let go, and yet everything becomes more alive. In daily life, practicing no-self doesn't require you to isolate yourself or abandon responsibilities. It's about awareness. When you feel anger, notice it without saying, "I am angry," simply observe. Anger is arising when sadness comes. Don't claim it as my sadness, just recognize. Sadness is here, and doing so, you create space between awareness and reaction. That space is the birthplace of freedom. It's where compassion grows, because you stop seeing your emotions as enemies to be controlled, and instead as visitors to be understood. This awareness transforms relationships, too. When you see that others are also trapped in their own illusion of self-clinging, fearing, defending, compassion naturally arises. You no longer need to judge or compete. You see their pain as your own, their confusion as something human, not personal. Imagine what the world would look like if more people lived this way. There would still be disagreements, but not hatred. There would still be pain, but not bitterness. Because underneath all our stories, there's something shared, the same fragile, beautiful humanity. The Buddha once said, "Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned." This is what the self does. It holds onto pain, waiting to throw it at the world, but only ends up burning itself. Letting go of self doesn't mean ignoring pain. It means no longer identifying with it. You can feel deeply, but without being consumed. You might ask, but if there's no self, who am I? The truth is, you are awareness itself. You are the silent witness of everything that comes and goes, your thoughts, your emotions, your memories. Awareness doesn't age, doesn't cling, doesn't judge. It simply observes. The body changes, the mind changes, but awareness remains open, like the sky holding every cloud. When you rest in that awareness, even for a moment, you taste freedom. You realize you don't have to be anyone to be complete. You don't need to add anything to yourself, nor remove anything. You are already whole, just as you are. Modern life constantly tells you the opposite. You are what you achieve. You are what you own. You are what others think, but that's the trap. The more you chase identity, the more you lose touch with your true nature. You become like someone chasing their own shadow. The harder they run, the further it seems. To live without clinging to a self doesn't mean you lose individuality. It means you gain clarity. You can still enjoy art, music, relationships, and ambition, but they become expressions of life, not extensions of ego. You do them because they are beautiful in themselves, not because they validate your worth. There's a deep joy that comes when you stop living through the lens of me. The colors become brighter, sounds become clearer, every moment feels alive. You start to see that life doesn't happen to you, it happens through you. You are both the wave and the ocean, the dancer and the dance. In relationships, this understanding changes everything. You stop trying to possess love or control others. You realize that people don't belong to you, just as you don't belong to anyone. Love becomes something pure, not ownership, but flow. You love simply because it's natural to do so, not because it defines you. Even in times of loss, the wisdom of no self brings peace. When someone you love passes away, grief still comes, but beneath it, there's also understanding. You see that they have returned to the vastness from which they came. Their form has changed, but their essence, the life that animated them, is still here, in everything. To live with this awareness doesn't make you cold or detached. It makes you more alive, more compassionate. You cry when others cry. You laugh when others laugh. But your heart doesn't drown in emotion. It stays open, spacious, kind. Letting go of self is not an intellectual exercise. It's a practice. Every time you catch yourself saying, "This shouldn't happen to me," take a breath and notice, who is the me speaking right now? Is it awareness, or just an echo of habit? You'll begin to see that the me comes and goes, like a thought. And the more you notice it, the more transparent it becomes. And as that illusion fades, what remains is peace, quiet, effortless peace. The kind of peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. The kind of peace that can sit in the middle of chaos and still smile. When you begin to observe the nature of the self deeply, you'll notice that it's never truly still. It's constantly shifting like smoke that takes shape only for a moment before dissolving into the air. One minute you feel confident, the next you feel lost. One day you feel generous, the next defensive. The self keeps changing, yet we cling to it as if it were solid and permanent. But the truth is, the more you look for it, the less you can find. This realization doesn't create confusion, it creates liberation. You begin to understand that your identity is not a prison. It's a story. And stories can be rewritten, reimagined, or even let go of entirely. That's the quiet beauty of awakening. You stop living as the story and start living as the storyteller. Through meditation, this understanding becomes more than theory. When you sit quietly and turn your attention inward, thoughts rise like waves. Emotions come and go. Sensations appear and fade. You simply watch, without judgment. Over time, you start to see that everything that arises also passes away. Nothing stays. Not even the one who observes stays the same. This is where peace is born, in seeing the impermanent nature of everything, including yourself. The practice of meditation isn't about escaping life. It's about returning to it, fully awake. You sit not to find another version of yourself, but to see through the illusion of separation. You learn that the silence beneath your thoughts isn't emptiness, it's fullness. It's the space that holds everything. When you rest in that awareness, you discover that there's nothing missing, nothing broken, nothing to fix. In that silence, the boundaries between you and life dissolve. The sound of the wind, the breath moving in your chest, the heartbeat in your body, they all begin to feel like one continuous movement. You realize that the universe isn't happening around you. It's happening as you. The more deeply you rest in this understanding, the less you struggle. You no longer need to prove your worth, to chase validation, to win arguments. You realize that peace doesn't come from control, it comes from surrender. And surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means opening up. It means letting life flow through you without resistance, without fear. Pain will still come, of course. Life will still bring loss, disappointment, and uncertainty. But now, you experience them differently. Instead of saying, "Why me?" you begin to ask, "What is life showing me right now?" You see pain as a teacher, not a punishment. Every heartbreak becomes an invitation to grow softer, wiser, and more open. And that's the real miracle, not that suffering disappears, but that you become so vast, so awake, that even suffering can't disturb your peace. Like the ocean that remains still beneath the waves, your awareness holds everything gently, without being moved. When you live from this space, you start to notice beauty everywhere in small, ordinary moments. The way sunlight filters through leaves, the way laughter fills a room, the way silence feels before dawn. You realize that happiness isn't something to chase. It's something that naturally arises when the noise of me quiets down. No self doesn't mean that nothing matters. It means that everything matters equally. Because when there's no me and them, love becomes limitless. You begin to care not because you're supposed to, but because you are care itself. Compassion flows effortlessly, like breath. You no longer need reasons to be kind. Kindness becomes your nature. The Buddha once said, when you realize how perfect everything is, you will tilt your head back and laugh at the sky. That laughter isn't denial. It's the laughter of freedom, the laughter that comes when you stop taking yourself so seriously and start seeing life as the sacred dance that it is. To live without self is to live in gratitude. Gratitude for the breath you didn't earn, the sunrise you didn't create, the love that appears unexpectedly. Gratitude not as a habit, but as a state of being. Every moment becomes a gift, fleeting, precious, and complete in itself. You might wonder, how can I begin this journey? The truth is, you already have. The moment you start questioning the self, the door opens. Every act of awareness, every pause before reaction, every breath taken in silence, these are steps toward awakening. You don't need to go anywhere. You just need to be here, now, with open eyes and a quiet heart. Meditation helps you remember what's always been true. You are not your thoughts. You are not your fears. You are not your history. You are the clear, boundless awareness in which all of this appears. When you rest in that truth, you realize that freedom was never something to find, it was what you already are. So, as you go back to your daily life, try to carry this understanding with you. When you face challenges, breathe and remind yourself, this, too, is part of the flow. When you feel pain, whisper gently, let it move through me. When you feel joy, don't cling, just smile and let it bloom. Life becomes light when you stop trying to hold it. And when you forget, because you will forgive yourself, gently return, over and over again. That's the essence of the path. Not perfection, but presence. Each moment, an opportunity to begin again. Remember, the path of no self is not about erasing who you are. It's about discovering that who you truly are has never been limited. You are not a small wave lost in the sea. You are the ocean itself, endlessly expressing, endlessly returning. As this understanding deepens, peace stops being a distant goal and becomes the quiet foundation of everything you do. You walk, you work, you love, you rest, all from that same stillness. And others will feel it too. Your calm will become a refuge for those still caught in the storm of me. Your presence will remind them of their own depth, their own wholeness. That's how transformation happens, not through preaching, but through being. When you embody peace, you become peace. When you embody compassion, you heal the world without saying a word. So let this be your reminder. You are not separate from life. You are life itself. The river, the wind, the laughter, the silence, all of it is you. Let that truth sink deep into your heart. Let it guide how you speak, how you love, how you live. And if today's reflection touched something in you, a sense of stillness, or even just a gentle curiosity, I invite you to hold onto that spark. Let it grow. Let it soften you. Let it become the seed of a new way of seeing. Thank you for sharing this quiet space with me. I hope these words find a place in your heart and remind you that peace is never far, it's right here, waiting for you to notice. If this message resonated with you, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a comment, or share your thoughts. Every small act of connection helps this community of mindfulness and compassion grow stronger. Let's keep walking this path together, one breath, one moment, one awakening at a time. Thank you for listening. Take care of your mind, your heart, and the beautiful world around you. Until next time, be gentle with yourself and remember, you are already whole.